Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. He's actually in my state. I've had all these people, guests from all over the world, Kuala Lumpur, Australia, South Africa recently. So it's nice to have somebody in California. We were talking in the pre-show about the current state of California, which is a very strange place these days, is a nice way to put it. But he has just authored a book within the last month. If you're watching this on my 3 return, I actually have another YouTube channel that somebody showed me that I can't even access, but the 3 ones that I can access now are 3 YouTube channels this is broadcasting to, plus X, Rumble, and Rockfin. You'll see the title of his new book. The full title is The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk for Christ and Country. His full name is Drew Thomas Allen, Allen. He has a Substack, so I'll put a link to his Substack. But I was reading through it today, and there's a lot of great information. I have his bio here at the back of the book. He's a writer, political commentator, and publicist whose client list includes some of the most influential conservative voices in America, including Charlie Kirk. He's known nationally as the Millennial Minister of Truth. He hosts the Drew Allen Show, and he delivers fearless commentary at the intersection of faith, culture, and politics. He's also a widely published columnist, and he is recognized for his unapologetic defense of America's founding principles and his conviction that the nation's political crisis is at its core a moral and spiritual one, something I agree with wholeheartedly. But again, we're going to talk about this. Charlie Kirk was assassinated September 10th, 2025. So it's fairly recent. And I've said it was going to be a tectonic shift in the whole culture of the United States. This is kind of this generation's JFK, in my opinion. And there's a lot to talk about. And we're talking the pre-show, just admiring his personal character. I found him to be very admirable in his character and his ability to dialogue. Like, that's what I had in like my blurb for my show is this Camus quote where it's like, if you can't dialogue, it's just like the end of the world. And that's kind of what it feels like in some of these. When you talk to some of these people, they're so close-minded. They claim to be open-minded. They're really not. Anyway, Drew can talk more about that. So Drew Thomas Allen, welcome to the show.
Hey, William, thanks for having me, man. I'm really excited to be here with you and talk about these things. These are important subjects for our time. And, we need to have the courage to have an honest national conversation about these things, particularly the violence that has been unleashed on this nation. And it just keeps happening. And the left is driving all of it pretty much. And they continue to just double down. There's an obvious connection between the left's rhetoric and, violence that ensues. And you're seeing that right now in Minneapolis with the attacks on ICE agents. And it's clear that the Democrat Party today has embraced violence, not just the radical, fringes of it, but the politicians themselves. And so, I've got 2 young girls, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I don't want them to grow up in a country like that. I don't want to live in a country like that.
Right. Why would you? I mean, political violence is it. This is an incredible era of political violence, both one way and the other. Like it's really like almost like the 60s. It has that feel to me where there's random shooters, cultural shooters. You list so many of them in your book: Mangione, Audrey Hale, Peyton Gendron, Robin Westman, these transgender people. But I mean, I think Charlie Kirk was kind of a beacon for me. Like I said, told you in the pre-show, he's 31. I'm 57. He's like a full quarter of a century younger than me. But I kept seeing him before the event. I didn't follow him, but every time I saw him, I saw this guy's very sensible. He's very nice. Like he's actually nice to like, and he's talking to people from the other side. Like he's willing to talk instead of shouting, which always happens, or name calling, or some devolves into the most infantile kind of conversation. But there's something really admirable about him. And I do think that he is like a martyr. There's no question. You mentioned Bonhoeffer. But like his character, I think he had exemplary character. And I think that he was trying to do the right thing. And it's just an incredible event, this whole thing at Utah.
Well, it's interesting. I talk to you and other people that kind of span generations. I'm 38 years old, turning 39 pretty soon. And what's so interesting when I talk to people is that Charlie Kirk, people that were twice his age, viewed him with admiration and respect as well, which, a lot of times in our own lives, age kind of equates with wisdom, or, you don't necessarily respect, oh, this is just a young guy. But, he inspired people that were much older than him. And I didn't even realize how significant Charlie was. I mean, I think this is the thing with his assassination. His life is even more important after his death in many ways. It magnified everything about Charlie, because look, yeah, I was Charlie Kirk's publicist for his second to last book, Right Wing Revolution, and I'm dealing with people that want to talk to him, and he's in demand. But so I was aware of who he was, but I didn't pay that much attention. And then he was killed, and I just really dug in to, and he was so prolific, right? So there's all this testimony that exists for us to continue to watch and study. And I just found myself impressed by him. And as a matter of fact, I found him as an example of somebody that I wanted to be. And the main thing was, um, he was fearless and totally courageous. You do not find, whether Republican or Democrat, many people, especially politicians, even people running for president, that want to go into a hostile environment, right? Like, I'll look back to that debate between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. And, Barack Obama had to look to Candy Crowley to bail him out for a fact check, when he gets uncomfortable. And so people want these curated spaces because they don't want to feel uncomfortable. And he loved to debate. He wanted to go into these hostile environments, whether it was at Oxford or, these college campuses. I mean, there were many, many, many examples throughout his life and career. And I was just wondering, where does that come from? Right. Like, cause he like relished it. He didn't just, do it because he felt like it was an obligation. He did it because he liked it. You could tell that he enjoyed it, like somebody going on a basketball court and playing ball. And I think it came from his faith. I know it came from his faith, and Charlie Kirk, I think for people out there, Charlie Kirk is an example of American exceptionalism. And at least for me, what he exemplified is demanding constant improvement of yourself over a period of time. He was never satisfied to be the person he was, yesterday or today. He always wanted to improve, and he had a hunger for knowledge and wisdom, and he pursued that. And his death did transform my life, William. That's a fact, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. It's a personal testimony. I'm a different person today because of his death.
Interesting. I mean, that's how you kind of start the book off, is your own experience going through. And I know it had a very important impact on not just you, but many other people, like, really saw how serious the situation is, that somebody can end up dead for his idea, just for telling the truth and being a truth teller, really, in my opinion. Like, I mean, so do you think that you're part of a large group that has also been impacted? I mean, do you feel like that there's other people who've really, like, his assassination has really changed their, like, it's changed mine. Like, I've researched him now, but no, I don't think it's like a huge personal transformation like yours. But do you think that you're part of a large group of hundreds of thousands or millions of people of your era whose death has changed?
Yeah, I think it's millions. I mean, I over the Christmas break, I was with one of my wife's cousins. He's a young guy. He's in his 20s. He just graduated from college recently. He studiously, watched everything Charlie Kirk did. And he was telling me about how it affected him and how influenced he was by Charlie and how much he loved Charlie. Shortly after his assassination, because people know what I do for a career, it gets interesting, when you live in a liberal environment, right? And you go to your kid's school and you go around the table and, hey, what do you do for work? And where I live, it's, oh, I run a winery. My family owns a winery. I do this, I do that. Drew, what do you do? And it's like, oh man, here we go. Well, I'm a publicist for, Tulsi Gabbard and Charlie Kirk and Dinesh D'Souza and Peter Navarro, so it's like, there's nowhere to hide, and I don't want to hide. But yeah, no, I saw it. And then, part of the martyrdom theme. I mean, I've run into a couple people, William, who really push back on the fact that I believe he's a martyr, which I didn't write that because I thought it was controversial at all. And, you know, I mean, the definition of martyrdom, you can be a martyr for any number of things. It doesn't have to be religious. It's, being killed for your beliefs. But, Christian martyrs in the Christian tradition, they expand the faith. And Bible sales soared after his assassination. I met people who didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was before that suddenly were interested in him. And, they were kind of had the same experience of me. Like, I'm a Christian, but I'm an autopilot Christian or had been for a long time. I need to step it up. Christianity is about activism. Go forth and make disciples of all nations. You got to study the word, stay in scripture, just like people should do with their country and the Constitution and all of that. So absolutely. I mean, it's just the outpouring of love after it was akin to something that we rarely see in history. It was akin to Reagan's funeral, or Billy Graham's crusades, or JFK, like you were saying, or MLK. Even it was remarkable.
Right. So he really had an impact. And like you say that, like he never shied away from debate. It seemed like he was, and what's remarkable about him also is he started so young, 18 years old. Like he had that calling or something where like, this is what I'm going to do. Like starting Turning Point at a very, turning it into a billion-dollar corporation. If you think about it, their revenues are 80 or 100 million a year. Standard business valuation 10 years. It's like, it probably still was going to go up too. So they took out a very impactful voice of that generation.
Yeah, because he he was very targeted and specific with what his objective was, and he saw the college campuses and universities, academia, as kind of ground zero for, producing radicals in this country. Obviously, they were indoctrination mills, and so he went to those places, and he spent a couple hours on campus or whatever, and he was able to deprogram a lot of people. It was just stunning to watch, and it was very effective. And you do have to approach that age group and the university system if you're going to course correct this nation, because the left has embedded itself throughout the education system, obviously, very smartly, right? If you want to, produce a bunch of, left leaning, Democrat voters in perpetuity, well, go to the source, right? Get them when they're young and start teaching them that this country's racist and to hate this country, and teach them the politics of grievance. And he said, enough. I'm going to go in the lion's den, and I'm going to address this. And he changed a lot of lives for sure. For sure. It's fun. Mind Hack here says it seemed to me like the memorial for him was almost a ritual. I don't know if there's, I don't know exactly what to read into that. I mean, I would say that maybe that might be true. I mean, most of us, like uh, no, no, no. Mind Hack. I want Mind Hack to comment. By the way, William, I want to address this because I want people. I'm somebody who is in alignment with Charlie Kirk. I'm a Christian, and his death transformed me. So if there are questions like that, I mean, I want to answer those questions because they're important to understand. And it was, I mean, because what Charlie represented for most of us, meaning kind of people like me, he was a Christian first, and that's what we admired most. He was almost like a pastor. And so that's how we viewed him. We didn't view him as a politician. I didn't even view him just as, a right, leaning commentator. It was that this is a guy who could be the shepherd of a church. And so that's why that memorial took on such a profound religious tone, because that's what we lost, a Christian leader. That's what Charlie was for so many of us and many Americans.
It seemed to be like, my interpretation is they were trying to make Turning Point seem like just a merely a political organization, primary political. And it seemed to, like, that was the impression that I got from some commentators after he was murdered. And it didn't seem like that. Like he was really a cultural figure influencing politics. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. He was a lot of things to a lot of different people, but I mean, he had the ear of the president of the United States. He had the ear of members of Congress. He would use his show, much like Rush Limbaugh would, I mean, he would use his show to influence, decisions in this country. Whether you agreed with his politics or not, that's what he used the microphone for, and he was very effective at that. And a lot of people were fighting, for his mind and to influence him because he was so influential.
It was both ways, and in my understanding, he was very anti-war, very much involved in like not wanting war or conflict with Iran, which is happening right now. So I mean, there's pictures of him with Trump and all this. Like he really did have, he was very influential in that regard. He represented this kind of doorway to that generation, I think, of right wing intellectuals, I guess is the best way to put it. I wouldn't call him like a pure intellectual. Do you know how many books he wrote? He was too active to be. He wasn't like
he wrote like six or seven
Oh
books.
wow, okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
my publisher published a couple of his earlier books, Post Hill Press, and then the Trump Organization, Winning Press. They posted. I mean, they published his most recent book posthumously, about observing the Sabbath. But yeah, I mean, he wrote. I mean, yeah, 5 or 6. I mean, he started early with the College Scam. I think that was probably his first book, which was a New York Times bestseller. And I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, just you mentioned his age, 31. 10 years, what somebody like him accomplished, just unreal.
It's amazing. He has now a huge repository. His podcast, I think, was in the top 10 or top 20 podcasts in the world, too. So not only was he out there making kind of content that involved dialogue or debates, but also streaming and Turning Point, this wealthy thing, He was a person of wealth. I think he had a very sizable estate when he passed away. At his young age, he'd accrued some serious, tens of millions of dollars, is my understanding. But the thing that he was up against is like he's really battling this kind of multi-headed hydra of the left, which is like this mentality of oppression and being in the school system and the political system and the culture is very much, I think, antagonist. Even though this is ostensibly a Christian country, I call myself a Christian. He was up against a lot of opposition, pretty nasty opposition too, I might add too. Like I don't think that he ever called for violence. They just accused him of hate, and his so-called assassin Tyler Robinson said this word hate, which also emulates this ADL. Like they're very sensitive to hate, like perceptions of hate, which is an interesting kind of phenomenon. Maybe you can expand on that.
Well, sure. The left and the transgender community, Democrats, they accused him effectively of hate speech. So they said that his speech was violence. Right. And then when an act of actual violence was carried out that claimed his life, that was somehow viewed as righteous, right, and justified by them. It's these phrases are intentional, and they've worked their way into the lexicon. I mean, a week or so after his assassination, Barack Hussein Obama, America's first Muslim president. I know he claimed to be a Christian, but I make that joke because he was like the Billy Graham of Islam. Islam never had a bigger, megaphone than Barack Obama. But Barack Obama went over to London, and it was the O2 Arena, and it was right after Donald Trump had brought up that pregnant women shouldn't be taking Tylenol. And Tylenol itself had said this in 2017. This wasn't, it wasn't controversial at all, actually, until Donald Trump says it, because in this day and age, if you're on the left, you just have to be against anything Trump is for. And Barack Obama used that same phrasing to describe Donald Trump's discussion about Tylenol. He said that, his words were violence. And it's an inversion of reality, obviously. And it feeds the mentally ill amongst the leftist ranks that are chomping at the bit for opportunities and justification to, go out and protest and riot and inflame the situation in America. And the thing about Charlie, the thing about me, obviously we can get mad and get angry about stuff, but fundamentally, as a Christian, there's a bastardization that's taken place in this country that's been propagated by the left, and it's been accepted by many people on the right, including Christians, which is that, Christianity can have no place in American politics. And people don't understand the distinction between a theocracy and, a republic that absolutely permits, a discussion of religion and God by politicians, etc. And the left points to, they say separation of church and state. And people need to understand what that's about because it's not true. It's not in our founding documents. It's not in the Constitution. Um, it comes from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists. The Danbury Baptists were a smaller congregation and or denomination at the time, and they were facing potential persecution by other religious denominations. And Thomas Jefferson, ironically, the point of the letter and his word separation of church and state, it's to say that the state is not to interfere in your practice of religion. It's not to prohibit you as a religious person or Christian for participating in politics. It's the opposite meaning. And so but they use that rhetoric to try and keep us quiet. And the point is, all policy decisions regarding politics, they flow from an underlying ideology. And so if it's not coming from a Judeo-Christian value system or Christianity itself or scripture, it's going to come from somewhere else. And transgenderism and the left itself are religions. And for someone like Charlie or me, Charlie would always talk about a transcendent power. And this is what distinguishes conservatives from, the left today. And that is to say that we believe in, objective morality. And the left embraces moral relativism. So they can shift their positions. And you can look at abortion, go through a list of things. Marriage, definition of marriage, all of it is subject to their immediate reversal and change as long as it gives them more power, right? I mean, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, just recently have all talked about deportation. They have supported the deportation of illegals. They have said the same things Trump has said about illegals. And now suddenly, because they have hitched their political futures to replacement theory, which is, instead of adopting policies that will satisfy the American citizen and voter, well, we're just going to replace you with people that we bring in from other countries that'll support us anyway.
It's incredible. It's happening. It's already happened. I mean, it happened fast too. Like under Biden, like huge demographic changes occurred. There's hundreds. There's probably, I don't even know how many millions of illegals there are in the United States, which have total access to voting and loans. It's just totally crazy. Yeah. So that's kind of like what he was up against, is this kind of fake kind of morality. I mean, on the left, it's like they always present themselves as the most moral people, but I mean, you can just see what's going on in Minnesota and California. Like, there's just huge fraud. They're kleptocrats is really what they are. They're not even Democrats. I think the default is they're all stealing all the way through the whole party. It's incredible, like, that they can even, I actually think a lot of the noise and the sound and fury that comes from the left is a cover for their just complete looting of the government. Well, they're actually greedier than a capitalist, in my opinion. So to like actually say we're socialists, they're not. They're actually accruing value like a greedy capitalist only for themselves and stealing from everybody else, every other taxpayer. It's a total joke. So you got to see through these lies, people. They're just, and the transgender stuff is like the height of immorality and like almost playing God stuff, like that the left can even advocate for these things, which in a lot of these studies, there's been a lot of studies on these transgender, and the outcomes are never good. It's not good.
Yeah, and these are things that you're not supposed to be able to talk about in public, right? These are the most protected, coddled classes of people, victim classes in America. You can call me a fascist, you can call me Hitler, you can dehumanize me all day long, white Christian Drew. But how dare you even broach the topic of, transgender violence in this country, and the fact that there is a biological reality. There's male and female, period. And no matter whether you chop it off or not, you're not going to become a woman, or the opposite sex. The gender theory is just such an outrageous thing. And you're seeing that on full display at the Supreme Court with the gender theorists at the ACLU just humiliating themselves. They can't define, men and women.
Yesterday, or
yeah.
today before yesterday.
Men can have babies. Can men
Yeah.
have babies, William? Can men have babies?
Of course
I don't know.
not. Of course not.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
is such obvious. It's almost like a mind rape is going on in the public discourse. Like it's a distortion of reality itself. It's almost like you're a magic wand or something. It's weird. Like it doesn't make sense that these people are. This is the kind of uh the warmth of collectivism's ideas coalescing where they can't even get out of it because the party with a capital P is dictating this. Like, well, we don't know what a woman is. Like, I mean, they literally have this. Like, I think that other Jackson or Shatani Jackson or whatever, the other member of the Supreme Court is even, she won't answer. Like, this is incredible stuff. I don't think people realize what a cluster F we're in. This is crazy.
Yeah. Well, and with Ketanji Brown Jackson, just a perfect example for the Charlie Kirk dehumanization that took place. He made the point, which was absolutely true, that she's a DEI hire, right? I mean, she's not worthy of the Supreme Court. And this is a woman who, when asked, define a woman, said, I'm not a biologist. And yet suddenly she's an expert on gender theory and, these classifications where, biological males who want to beat up women in sports, well, they have a right to go and play in those fields and go in their locker rooms and everything else. And Charlie Kirk pointed out that, she's only in that position because Joe Biden himself, the only qualification he put out was, I am going to make sure the next, appointment is a black female. And they called him racist for that, and it's like all of Charlie Kirk's positions were totally misconstrued and lied about from him, and I don't know. I mean, I like the transgender issue. I've got a chapter in the book called Frankenstein's Monster, and it's relating the left's radical transgender experiment on kids to that story of obviously creating something that doesn't exist, shouldn't exist, that isn't playing God, kind of to your point. But then worse is just like Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, he didn't want to take any responsibility or accountability for what he unleashed on society. And the left doesn't want to do that anytime these mass shootings happen or the Charlie Kirk situation. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's why I was telling you before the show. It's like, I just checked today and this is like the 10th time Amazon has censored this book. Like every time people start to buy it, they shut it down. Like they turn the spigot off. And I don't know if it's because they don't want these controversial truths, being widely distributed. It's crazy. I mean, it's like Eric Metaxas wrote the endorsement for the book. I mean, he's a pretty famous guy, it's wild.
Right. But I mean, here's the thing. There's some of these people that I shoot, they're all, a lot of them were transgender. So, or trans. Robin Westman, who I listed, Audrey Hale, the supposed killer, Tyler Robinson's boyfriend is a tranny or whatever. I'm not even supposed to say transit. How are they censoring your book? Are they taking it off for sale, or you can't find it on Amazon? Or
it's what? No, you can absolutely find it. What they do is you can go and put that in your shopping cart, and when you go to click purchase, you'll get a message that says that this book cannot be shipped to your address, and it doesn't matter. It's like censorship by friction. So they don't make a loud noise, that, oh, this book's been pulled from Amazon. They just interrupt the ability to distribute the book, right? And I mean, people can get it at Target and Walmart and some of those places, still bookshop.org, I think. I mean, but Amazon's where you want people to buy the book because it, the more, as people buy the book, you get visibility. And this book was I put this book intentionally, William. I think you'll appreciate this. I'm not totally trolling. There's actually a reason for this, is because I have a chapter about transgenderism that's important. But I asked my publisher to put this book in competition in the LGBTQ plus demographic studies. Nice. And for like a week or two, it was number one in the LGBTQ. So I was the best-selling LGBTQ, whatever. But
I've done a lot of studies on transgender. I did a whole show on transition to kill, like almost like because there's a higher rate of violence. And these are the empath documents. I don't know if you've heard of those. They're incredible. Like they're literally deceiving the parents about outcomes and consequences. And there's an industrial kind of element to this transgender. There's a huge financial incentives that are placed out. And then also there's a lot of detransitioning going on. So people, young, impressionable kids, have been told this, and then they're like, what the hell just happened? How did I get on these life-altering, life-changing medications? They're not really, I wouldn't call them medications. They're just life-changing poison or something. Like, it's really wild. It's just unbelievable. And then you, like, a lot of these guys are Jewish who believe in the Talmud, and there's like 8 genders, which is really not Christian at all. Like, you're supposed to be happy with the way God created you. So I mean, it's madness. It's just really madness.
It's insane that it's even pervasive in society. It's insane that we even have to talk about it and try and defend the fact that there's two sexes, male and female. You know, a young person. I mean, first off, these puberty blockers and the hormones they put these people on, and they're also used to chemically castrate sex offenders, for one. You know, you used to call this type of stuff torture, right? You were actually removing somebody's identity if you were in medieval Europe or something like that, and you took a man and you chopped off his penis. You would be denying him his identity, right?
Yeah.
And
Eunuch,
obviously,
that's
yeah.
what happens. These people no longer can procreate. Some of them, I don't think
Yep.
a lot of them can procreate. So.
No. And look, what's so frustrating to me, things are changing though. So when I first started doing this, William, when I first, I had a publicist before. My publicist hired me and made me his VP eventually. But so I would go on, and as a pundit, I go on radio and TV and talk about different issues, right? And I went on this one radio show, and I very calmly said, you know, there had been another episode even a few years ago, obviously, of transgender violence. And I said, you know, this transgenderism is a mental illness. And he shut me down. He wouldn't let me continue talking. He wouldn't even debate me on it. He was so sensitive to it. Now I don't see that happening so much. But, you know, transgenderism is a mental illness. If it's body dysmorphia.
It used to be in the DSM. It used to be in the diagnostic medical thing that has a mental illness.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So it's, I mean, it was diagnosed that way. I don't know what happened. It taken off, but yeah.
Well,
it's body dysmorphia. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have to ask, like, so why does the left support this, right? Why is the left exclusively backing this? Obviously, they've incentivized it too. There are doctors who have no souls who are making a lot of money off of this. That's where you can probably find, you know, it's always about money at the end for some of these people. Everyone's for sale, apparently. But, you know, if you have a young kid and they're anorexic or bulimic, you wouldn't tell that person, hey, that's great. Keep sticking your fingers down your throat and vomiting so that you look like what you want to look like. You would never support that, right? That would be evil.
Right.
So why would you then tell someone, what's the difference in somebody who looks in the mirror and says, oh, I think I'm too fat. And then somebody looks in the mirror and they say, oh, I don't want to be a man, or I don't want to be a woman. So it's incredible to see that. And obviously, the main problem for me is, look, if you're 18, I don't support transgenderism and never would. I mean, if you want to wake up every day and destroy yourself by drinking, you know, a handle of Jack Daniels, I'm not going to condone that either. I'm not going to come to your house and give you a bottle of Jack because that's your thing. That's wrong. That's not love. And that's one of the things that people have to understand. Love is not condoning sin, right? As a Christian, Jesus never condoned sin. He would send people away and
sin more. Yeah, go and sin no more.
Amen, brother.
Right.
So anyway, these you know, the idea that you would try and encourage someone who's young, who can't make basic decisions, you know, about their own life, can't drive, can't buy cigarettes, can't buy alcohol, can't do anything, that they somehow have a fully formulated, you know, lobe that they can make a decision about changing, you know, having a profound change for their life that's going to affect them forever. I mean, it's total insanity. And so we just have to speak more plainly and bluntly like this. I mean, and you don't have to, there's no hate in it. If anyone hates anybody, it's the left who would do this to children. It's torture, it's mutilation, and we shouldn't tolerate it. Yeah.
And society, they're taking away somebody who could be a productive, you know, have kids and, you know, start a family or do all those things. Like, they're out of the system, and it's really disgusting. Like, these are totally evil people. Something has happened even in my lifetime where the left has morphed into something, in my opinion, demonic. Because it used to be the left was kind of, it wasn't communist. It was much more about economic rights and economic thoughts, and you know, people covering the culture of the left has really changed in one generation into something strange with all these like weird Luciferian flags everywhere that are multicolored, like Sodom and Gomorrah. It's almost morphed into some kind of immoral thing. So then like you are critical of the kind of right left paradigm, but the thing is like they've become something really crazy, and a lot of condoning of violence too. A lot of like violent mentality, like get out in the street. Antifa's violent, a lot of violence and shootings and takeovers and things like that. Like this kind of revolutionary fervor, I don't think was there, or maybe it was just suppressed under Hoover or the right. But it's really changed for me. Yeah.
Well, it's I mean, the left, for a long time has been inundated with this Marxist ideology. If you, I try and read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, which is the left's playbook for fomenting Marxist revolution in this country.
Dedicated to Lucifer.
Yeah. So this is helps you understand like who these people are you're up against, and I'm reading some of these comments too. It's
hard to keep up with them. We'll go over the comments at the end in about 20 minutes. I'll go over.
So what were we? Oh yeah. So I look. I mean, one of the big takeaways and things we need to talk about in this country is the fact that the violence in this country is not symmetrical. It's asymmetrical. All of the violence today is coming from the left. That's not to say you can't have somebody on the so-called right that commits an act of violence, but ideologically, I mean, I compare it in the book, 9/10 to 9/11, as we were talking about. There's very little difference between jihadists, radical, Islamist terrorists, and the radical leftist terrorists in this country. One does it in the name of religion, and the other does it in the name of progress. But the end result is the same, and the objective is the same, which is they are ideologies that do not permit any kind of disagreement. They are ideologies that demand absolute submission. And, that's Charlie Kirk's targeting too. He was not going to submit. And you would think, William, that, the left would look in the mirror at some point if they had souls left, and they would say, hey, maybe we should drop, some of this rhetoric. Maybe we should stop calling Donald Trump and his supporters and ICE and Charlie and every Republican and MAGA supporter, fascist, basket of deplorables. You had Rand Paul's ribs broken by a Democrat neighbor. You had the Bernie Sanders supporter that shot up the congressional Republican. Scalise almost lost his life. You had an assassination attempt against Trump. Obviously, you've got these instances and episodes of trans violence.
Multiple attempts.
Yep. And so, and now we've got ICE, and the responsible thing to do would be to say, hey, ICE is here. They're federal agents. They're doing their job. We don't want you to get hurt, so stay out of the way. Instead, they're trying to create more situations where they can exploit conflict between ICE and these protesters to escalate further.
No question. That girl that was murdered in Minnesota, or killed, I should say, she was antagonizing ICE. Like, she wasn't some innocent bystander. She parked her car. She had been bothering them and intimidating them. Much like, these strange things that happen, like the other shooting. Was it at Wisconsin where the kid killed three protesters? Like, these things are exacerbated by the rhetoric and doctrine and getting out into like, breaking the law and things like it's just incredible. These are just incredible events, and they're all distorted. The reality of them, it's distorted on TV. You see it all the time. And they actually do. I mean, people celebrated Charlie's death. They blame the interesting thing is that they actually blamed him. It's his fault that he was killed because he was outspoken. And I remember people celebrated. It was TMZ that I saw that these people heard Charlie Kirk was dead. They literally cheered, like, very sick. These are very evil people. Like, you're cheering this young guy's death. The guy's the most benign guy. Just he had his own opinions. You don't accept that, and that's the one of the interesting thing is that the Christians aren't trying to destroy somebody's life, but the left will destroy you. They'll try to take everything in your life, your home, your job, and all this stuff. And you mentioned the ADL too. They've like come out pretty strongly against anybody critical of Israel too. Like,
Well,
this guy Greenblatt or whatever his name is.
yeah, well, my main issue with the Anti-Defamation League is, I mean, they initially were started, to curb, anti-Semitism or whatever, but that's not even what they're doing today. They are a leftist propaganda machine. So, you've heard this talking point, you heard it throughout the Biden auto-pin administration, and you still hear it from leftists that tells you that the opposite of what we're witnessing in reality, right? Which is that the majority, if not all, of the instances of violence in this country are coming from the right, right? And so, for example, Greenblatt supported BLM as a social movement. So BLM was not classified in the ADL's index as ideologically motivated violence from the left, nor was Audrey Hale, whose manifesto read like a Barack Obama speech or a CNN panel. Same thing. So these don't even make it in. But what they'll do is they'll find some bar fight in Wisconsin between two neo-Nazis. And if a neo-Nazi kills another neo-Nazi, they'll put that in there and catalog it as an instance of right-wing ideological violence, which is insane. And there's another issue with this too. The left-right labels that we accept and adopt and use in this country are dishonest. So those labels, left, right, are imported from France, and then they were kind of hardened in this country after the Russian Revolution. And obviously the right referred to supporters of the monarchy, the left, people who sat on that side, were the revolutionaries. And if you come over to the United States of America, there is no real right. I mean, you're either in support of the Constitution. We don't have a monarchical system in the United States of America. So left, though, is pretty clear. Those are socialism's the root of left-leaning ideology. And what's so interesting, right? So the left labels people like me or Trump or Charlie fascists, right? The root of fascism is socialism. Fascism is akin to, the only difference between communism and fascism, for example, is that, or socialism, is that under fascism, you allow free enterprise, right? Private enterprise, but it must do the bidding of the state, right? And under, a communist system, for example, obviously, those private businesses are banned completely, right? For total collectivism. And so that's what's ironic about all this is fascism is a leftist system. They call it right, far right, but the root of it is socialism, which defines both. And so neo-Nazism has nothing to do with conservatism. We reject that wholeheartedly. So it's dishonest to go and say, we're not really right as on the right? We're pro-Constitution. We stand for the founding of the country.
A liberal document, a formerly liberal document, right?
Yeah,
or at least
exactly.
termed that way.
Yeah. So,
yeah, no, you're right. I mean, these are kind of artificial entomological constructs, but yeah, it's getting crazy out there. Yeah, when the left says fascism, they're thinking like jack boots and people moving an organization and oppression. So that's kind of like, so when the right talks about fascism, they're thinking like a political construct. But for the left, it's like these big bad guys are going to come get us like Nazis and stuff like that. Who, like you said, it's the National Socialist Party. Yeah. It's a socialist party for nationalists. So you got everything like, the Workers' Party. You got houses cheap and all this other stuff like that. So, yeah, so I mean, it's not just that. I mean, you have to see the derision for Charlie in the left that has changed. It is really an anti-Christian party. They don't have values that are I don't even know if there's a Christian in the Democratic leadership. Is there? I don't know.
Well, they would claim to be, but sure, you can claim to be a Christian all day long, but then if you support, transgenderism, that's fundamentally at odds with the Christian belief system. The same, honestly, all of the policies uh, on the left at this point. I was talking to I had a couple people over at my house for dinner last night. My wife cooked, and one's a mega pastor he's been a pastor of like a bunch of churches, but 10,000 people in the audience. And then kind of one of his he's the mentor of a friend of mine out here who's the pastor at my church. And he was saying, I don't as the pastor, he doesn't view himself as Republican or Democrat. He views himself as a Christian, but it just so happens that the policies of the left don't align with Christianity. So therefore, that's not a party that you can support politically. And I think that's the way to go. I mean, I accept that we have a two-party system. We still have the best. I think we definitely have the best system that exists. I mean, even though it's imperfect. So, it's not about me being a rigid Republican or anything like that. That's why I say I'm a conservative, because that ideology is outside of the bounds of a political party affiliation, right? Just like my faith. But the left is absolutely at war with Christianity. And that's why, again, we come back to them, talking about separation of church and state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see, I mean, they have like Mamdani in New York City is a communist. He can call himself a socialist all day long. His housing czar, she wants to abolish private property rights. She thinks those are, indicative of some racist system, even while her own parents own a, almost $2 million home in, I think, Nashville.
Total
so there's no room for God.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They're all hypocrites, man. All the leadership have NGOs and are funneling money off this stuff. It's all just a big ploy. Like, even Bernie Sanders, to me, is really one of the greatest con men and grifters in American history. And nobody wants to argue with me about it, because he's always talking about people it's the same kind of like fairy tale he gives to his followers. He's got 3 houses and drives around a Ferrari. Like, he's always out for the money. Like, he's like I said, these people are more capitalistic than the capitalists they so-called despise. They'll never give up their money, just like you said. So, I mean, I'm sure Mondami's getting his full salary and making sure all these here in California, there's so many losers, DIE losers, who are like getting twice the real salary they should, if they should even be employed, actually. Totally incompetent people in like fire department, stuff like that. Yeah. But I mean, it's grotesque. What denomination are you?
Well, I grew up Church of Christ, which the only kind of critical thing with the Church of Christ is that we were a cappella, so we didn't have instruments in church. And now I'm just non-denominational, the church that. But I've experienced many denominations, because I went to an all-male college preparatory school in Dallas.
You went to Jesuit school, right?
I went to Jesuit, yeah. So I went to Mass for 4 years. So I'm familiar with it all. But yeah, my current church is non-denominational.
Where in Dallas? Is it Jesuit? Is that the name of the school?
Yeah, Jesuit Dallas. It's in North Dallas.
North Dallas, nice. Yeah, North Dallas.
Yeah,
it's close. Is it what's the school that's over there? Is it Baylor? Baylor.
Yeah, well, you got Baylor in Waco. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's the one that's north there? In North Dallas, I forgot.
Well, you've got SMU, Southern Methodist University.
That's it. Yeah. Are you close to SMU?
Well, my high school was. I grew up in South Dallas, technically in a town called DeSoto. But yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. I split my time between going to see my grandma in Waxahachie, which was just, old school, all American, and then North Dallas with the elites. So I think I'm fortunate that I've been exposed to so many different people, and as a conservative, it's funny too, William, because I spent my whole life around liberals. My college was very left leaning. I mean, my high school was very left leaning, and then I was an actor for a long time, and I lived in Italy for two years working for Marc Jacobs, opening and managing a retail store. So those are all left leaning industries. So I never saw fit to convert to the left.
Yeah, but you said that you've kind of taken some calumny. You've taken some blows from people who, they attack if you're not part of the team. Like you're always seen as kind of like an outsider in certain environments. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to care. Now I don't. That was one of the changes that happened after Charlie's death too. A lot of people talk about, oh man, Charlie died. That inflection point, instilled fear in people, so they don't want to be courageous. For me, it was the opposite. I know it sounds funny, but him being murdered actually emboldened me and made me more courageous.
Do you have time, Drew, for a few questions? I'm trying to go through them real quick. And see
Oh yeah, man, your audience has been here, patient. They've listened.
Let me see. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat. But here's what we got here. Mind Hack, thanks for the super chat, Mind Hack. It's do you believe the guy who's arrested did it, Tyler Robinson?
Yeah, this question had to come.
Yeah,
big question. Yeah, I believe it. I believe that absolutely. I understand there are many theories out there. Some people genuinely have questions. Some people are just asking questions, whatever. But look, it follows. There's obviously evidence out there for it, but it follows a clear pattern, right? So we know that there's left-wing violence that's erupting in this country. We've seen the targeting of conservatives for their beliefs. We've seen steady dehumanization. I experienced it in my own life with my friends that decided they couldn't be friends with me anymore in 2020. They didn't do it in 2016, but after 4 years of steady dehumanization, when I voted for Trump in 2020, all my left-leaning friends abandoned me. I don't have a single one left. Wow. And so the idea that here's what happened. The trans mafia and the left hated Charlie Kirk because he was an effective speaker, and they said his words were violence because, for one important thing, he would not acknowledge the transgenderism. He would speak out against it. And the LGBTQ plus alphabet mafia in particularly put a target on Charlie Kirk's back. They labeled his group, TPUSA, a hate group. And Charlie Kirk, what you don't know, because I do know a lot of people around Charlie Kirk, this guy was receiving death threats that were getting steadier and steadier for years and years and years. And so, and look, I know one of his security guards. I know some of these people around him, and they had tracked down some of these people that issued threats too. So they were very real on his life. And so the idea that somebody that, was in a relationship with a dude that thought he was a girlfriend, that didn't know he was gay, that hated Charlie Kirk and expressed hatred because he the trans community viewed him as his words as violence against them, that he would be motivated to go and shoot Charlie Kirk. I mean, that absolutely passes, the smell test. That's absolutely what I believe happened.
He also asked, what happened to no foreign wars? Good question. I thought that's why we elected Trump, is that we was going to stop the wars, which have only escalated. And he just asked for another $500 billion for the Department of Defense, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a nuanced, I have a nuanced view of this stuff. I don't want any long-term war. There's a debate right now, William, right, about what America first means. Does it mean an isolationist mentality? So, Venezuela, I don't even consider a war. And I believe that was appropriate action because it's in our hemisphere. I do believe that supports the Monroe Doctrine. And also, we have our enemies, the Chinese, the Iranians, the Cubans. It's a long list. The Russians, they were using Venezuela as a position to harm the United States of America, and that was over in 2 hours. So I mean, Donald Trump absolutely promised no foreign wars. I think that there needs to be a healthy skepticism about some of this stuff. Charlie Kirk expressed some skepticism. He didn't want to get involved in a large scale war in Iran. But look, when we went in and bombed Iran with that targeted strike, people were saying, "Oh no, this is going to lead to boots on the ground and whatever else," and that didn't happen. It was clean. We took out their nuclear sites, or one of their major ones, and so it didn't happen. So I think that right now, with what's going on in Iran, it's a longer conversation, I guess, William. I don't want to see Americans go into a situation like obviously Iraq was, or Afghanistan. I don't think that that's what Trump's plan is in Iran. But the world is a more stable place without the Iranian mullahs, sponsoring terrorism, targeting, the West and the United States. Obviously, it includes Israel too. But Iran's a different place in the Middle East because in 1979 it was pro-Western. It was actually effectively an ally, and since then it's been a theocracy. But I don't have an issue yet with what Trump is doing.
Gotcha. RR Channel asks, where is Charlie Kirk buried? Do you know?
No, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't the idea that Erica Kirk has to go and publicly release where he's buried or if he was buried or cremated. I don't know any of that information, but what do you think? Would you want to put guards? I mean, Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck, by leftists who then celebrate in the streets. Are you going to go publicly put Charlie Kirk's grave somewhere? I mean, what you want 24/7 security around his grave? So that's an irrelevant thing to me.
Okay. Next question is from Telegraphic. I'm glad you wrote this book. Does it go into TPUSA and the potential recruiting directing of Charlie?
No, it doesn't get into TPUSA. And I want to be clear too, I mean, I respect, people's different opinions about, what happened to Charlie and who did it. And this book really isn't about that. This book is about obviously the effect it had on me. And it's about what I view as a broader, more important, significant issue in this country, which is rising left-wing violence and a need for, Christians in this country to actually step up and be Bible-based again and to push back against this. This is exposing the left and what they've done, and it's holding them accountable for all of these episodes, right? Many of them we mentioned and you mentioned. But no, it doesn't get into TPUSA or anything like that, really.
And then LG asks, question, Drew, who do you see, if anyone, that can be the synergistic powerhouse that Charlie Kirk was?
They're not there. There's no one like Charlie Kirk. And that's one of the points in this book is you better become that person. I've got to become my best version of myself to fill that void. Nobody's going to replace him, but you can, everyone, what you should not do now, if you love Charlie Kirk, if he was influential and you liked him and agreed with him, what you should not do is just sit around and wait for another Charlie Kirk to show up to do that job. We've got to do that job ourselves. And that's why I focus so much on, okay, where did his courage come from? Why was this guy so unique? How could he have the courage and conviction to go in these hostile environments? And the answer to that is his Christian faith. And I have since found that myself as the key.
That's a great way to end it. I mean, we are at the hour mark. Is there anything else you'd like to add or anything I missed, Drew?
No, man. I just am so grateful to see, the response that people have had, including you, that, I think the threshold of tolerance for this type of political violence is coming to an end. But I just think we have to kind of, dig in. Did I interview anyone in Charlie's family? No. And it's you're not going to find any interviews of Charlie's people or family members in this book at all. I mean, this is a strong defense of Charlie's legacy. And, a lot of people want to put words in Charlie's mouth and kind of cherry pick what his views about things were. This is a book that's really rooted in the spiritual foundation of Charlie's beliefs. You got a good audience. I got to say, man, really thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.
A lot of questions. Yeah. Thanks everybody in the chat. We had almost 100 listeners, live listeners. Tell people about your Substack or where they can reach out to you.
Yeah. So you can subscribe there, drewallen.substack.com. I do a lot of writing there, and then obviously columns too. I've got my podcast. Everything kind of goes through my Substack. So if you want to contact me or anything, that's the best place to do it.
Right. So your Substack, I'll put a link to your Substack there. And then the book, hopefully you'll be able to find it on Amazon or elsewhere.
Yeah, go try.
Yeah, the full title again is The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk for Christ and Country. I do think he's a martyr. And the full name is Drew Thomas Allen, Allen. So Drew, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, William. God bless you, brother.
God bless you too. Stay there.